And
This
I'll go ahead and lock
conference
up.
will now be recorded.
Thank you, Joseph. Sure appreciate it.
Sorry, I was a little late.
This is the meeting of the Emergency Preparedness Commission, January 23rd, 2025, and we're calling this meeting at 5:45 p.m. Okay. Let's see who's here. Jim? Are you here, Jim?
Maybe.
Okay, I'll put that in the next minutes. Let's see. Mari is coming.
It should be late.
Okay, Gary?
Gary Burns here.
Dick is not here. Harry?
Here.
Gordon?
Here.
Carol? All right, thank you. Approval of the December 2024 minutes.
I'll move to approve the December 2024 minutes.
I'll second that.
All right, approved or moved by Gary and seconded by Gordon. Okay, thank you. All those, any discussion on that?
It looked clean.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Any public comments? Do we see anyone online at this time? I can't tell from here. It doesn't look like it. Yes, Anne, please come to the podium.
Hello, all of you. My name is Ann Velisis, and I'm the mayor of Port Orford. And I wanted to come today just to, first of all, express my thanks to all of you for serving on this committee. It's an incredibly important committee for our community. And I know I've been paying attention to what's going on here on and off for the past couple of years through talking with Councillor Burns, who brings the information to us and also sometimes shares things with me. So I know lots of the things that you guys have been aiming to work on. And I just wanted to say, like everything in the city, I recognize that the tasks that you are working on can be very overwhelming. There's so many things to do to be prepared in an emergency. And of course, we live in a place where we could have big emergencies. And so I just say that to say I understand some of the feelings that you may have at times. And I think it's incumbent upon us to work towards prioritizing the things that we want to get done. That's something our city council is going to work on. And also, I wanted to tell you in relation to the rest of the city, we're going to be asking commissions that if you do have projects that you're working on that are going to need like a grant proposal or collaboration with the city and staff, to think about maybe one project you want to work on in the year, just because we're trying to figure out how to not get our staff too overwhelmed and make sure that we make progress on things. So as you guys think about the things you're working on this year, that's something to consider. Like if you want to do something that's going to require staff collaboration, think of like one thing. And I think it's a good practice for us all to think about what are the priorities, what are the things we want to accomplish. Anyway, so mostly I just wanted to say, as I said at the beginning, thank you all very much. And I really appreciate the things you're working on as on behalf of our citizens. So thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Thanks so much, Ann.
Any other comments? No one online? Okay, new business. Jeff Hughes. Curry County Emergency Manager report.
Jeff Hughes, Emergency Manager for Curry County. No new emergencies to report.
Thank you.
We are in the process of, like I was explaining to Mr. Burns, in the process of having a new hazard mitigation plan for the county done up. University of Oregon's taking a lead to try to get a grant for us on that. The grant that we used for repairing the Bosley radio tower that had broken down, was a Homeland Security grant. We had about almost $17,000 left over that. The state was going to take that money back because it was left over. And I've done a addendum to that, or an amendment, I'm sorry, to that grant, asking for that money back to use for medical supplies and tools and things like that for first responders, also for specifically to outfit county buildings and county vehicles that don't have stop bleed kits and things like that in them. And then whatever overflow we have in that, I'm going to place in our pre-positioned equipment connexes scattered throughout the county. So hopefully they approve that, and then I'll buy, utilize that to get a bunch of new medical stuff that we don't currently have our hands on. Next Tuesday, I'm moving a bunch of stuff from pre-positioned equipment supply at county shops, and it's going to be moved to another Connex in the South County area to utilize down there. I try to be a little vague about where I'm putting stuff, just because I don't want other folks to come borrow it from us. I just want to make sure that the people who need to know where it's at know where it's at, and they will. But I won't probably announce that to the public about where everything's at, because I don't want, like I said, somebody to borrow all our medical equipment and our sheltering supplies and things like that from us without telling us. One of the things I want to do is move one of my two Connexes that I have are in the inundation zone in Gold Beach. I want to put one up at a location in Gold Beach and one up at a location up here in Port Orford. And specifically for the one in Port Orford, I'm going to put as much medical, like a temporary medical sheltering equipment in it, based on the fact that Port Orford and Langlois and as far down south as like Frankport, that area has no medical facilities other than the medical facility that's here in Port Orford, which is also in the inundation zone. So I want to backfill a possible need for a temporary medical shelter here in Port Orford in the event of a catastrophic emergency, so that we can help our citizens, and then from there triage and then get them transported out of the county, so we're not just trying to take care of people out in the open. Beyond that, I have other things working on as far as plans go. I've located about 27 tsunami signs and arrows pointing directions for tsunami evacuation zones. I will make those available to places that want to put up new tsunami signs. Obviously, I can't put all 27 of them in one town or another town, but if the town would like to have 4, 5, 6, 7 of those, I'm very willing to drop those off to you folks if you wanted to get those positioned in town somewhere, identifying evacuation routes to higher ground.
Yeah, I think so. I wish Mari was here, because she's been talking about the need for more tsunami signs. So I'll definitely let her know.
Luckily, I found a pile from my predecessors in a closet that I didn't know was full of my stuff. So anyway, so those have been located. I have those inventoried. They're sitting on my table, and I can start delivering those out to the different locations probably as early as next week, if you wanted to have your public works folks tack them up where you folks decide you want them. So
We can use a minimum of 10.
okay, all right. So I'll see what I can do. I can give you guys I'll give you guys easily a third of them, because we have 3 main towns here on the Maine coast, not to dismiss Langlois, of course, or like Pistol River, but so I'll bring up as many of those signs, and each one has one arrow sign that comes with it. So you guys can post those up where you want them in town, identify different roads. One of the things I want to do, I'm also going to hit up ODOT to see if there's a specific design or pattern of a tsunami safe area, even if it's just a blue line on the ground. The area north of Port Orford, between say Silver Butte and just this side of Elk River Bridge, before it drops off to the Elk River Bridge, is all safe from even a Cascadia level event. And I would like to mark that area up there, even if it's just a matter of seeing if I can find volunteers and somebody to donate cans of blue and white paint and have volunteers go up and paint those, especially if you have people that have either community service, like high school kids that have community service projects they need to accomplish for their graduations. I'm going to see if ODOT has any specific designs. I'm not necessarily going to ask permission. I'm just going to kind of do it. But I just want to see if they have a specific design they want, and then I'm happy to get a stencil made up for that, and then seeing if I can find a local business to either donate the paint and supplies for that, or see if I have a tiny bit of money and an admin budget that I can utilize.
That would be blue and white
Blue
paint.
and white, I think, is a typical color.
Mhm.
This probably isn't going to be, I mean, my guess is it's just going to be like regular like commercial and residential type paint as opposed to like reflective highway paint. If the highway department does, what's that?
I think it's a thermal process.
Yeah, something like that. So if they have the ability to do that, I'm going to ask them to do it. My guess is they don't have the ability to do it because it hasn't been done.
Hmm.
So
I kind of passed that by Melissa, and I think it's going to take a council approval to put something on the street.
okay.
But I was wondering about blue T-posts.
Mhm.
And if everybody knew that where the blue T-posts were
Yeah.
is 100 feet or whatever
Yeah.
it is that we want to.
And that'd be a good thing too. Even a blue T-post with like a blue chevron painted on the ground, just something to identify it. And I was specifically, I mean, as far as town, of course, you guys can do what you want in your town. My thought was like on the highway, that's a very big, safe area there. And as long as the bridge just north of town over Garrison Slough is still a viable bridge, almost the whole town could sit up there on the side of the highway and in their vehicles or even walk or jog that far and be safe from an even Cascadia level event. So the problem is even with people driving through the area, if it's not marked or people haven't already found a safe area to evacuate to, they're not necessarily going to know if that area of the highway is necessarily safe and up at an elevation that it is a good location to go to. So that's one of the reasons I want to start seeing if ODOT will object too much to us marking the highway areas, either with, like I said, like you said, Gary, blue T-post or blue and white lines.
It seemed like
something.
if the lines were on the side,
Mhm.
kind of coming in, but because I think it gets worn out really quick.
Yeah, and that's what my thought would be from the fog line out, but big enough and wide enough and kind of bright enough that it can be seen. So if folks are driving and they hear an alarm go over their phone or hear it come over their radio and they cross into a safe area, realize, oh, all I gotta do is pull off over here and we're okay, as opposed to driving and maybe getting themselves back in an unsafe.
How are you determining the elevations for the safe areas?
Going off of the Dogami inundation maps that are available online, and just going for like on the Dogami maps, it'll show the inundation zone at different colors, and it go from, I think it's, don't quote me on this, it goes from like blue to yellow, and then at the top of the yellow is a wide black line. And Dogami's information, as we get past that black line, you are safe even from a Cascadia level event. So my thought is go to the black line, go find that spot on the pavement, and then add another 100 feet to it just to be on the safe side.
Mhm.
I mean, not that I don't trust the government, but I have worked for them for 37
Pull off the
years. So.
street.
Yeah. And then put our markings there or posts or whatever we decide to use for
Mhm.
some kind of a marker, just so that our citizens know, so that tourists know, or just people passing along Highway 101 can, if they're at least looking for that, say they get the alert of a tsunami, they don't know where to go, they start looking on the side of the road and they see the post, they see the sign, or they see the paint, something along those lines. I'm hoping that between that and information put out to the public, that indicates a safe zone that they can pull over and know that they're okay right there. It's one of the issues we had, not so much here. Well, it wasn't an issue here, but people just continue driving on 101. Some areas you're safe, some areas you're not. And unless you have an actual map or some kind of an app with you that tells you whether you're in a safe zone or not, most areas don't have markings or signs. Coos Bay's got a much harder issue with that because of their population level, and they've got a lot of their population that lives down in the inundation zone. So the meeting I attended with them yesterday, they have a pretty significant issue that they're trying to figure out as far as educating everyone where to go.
That alert was really a mess. I was up there.
Yeah, it's,
I was up Bay Area Hospital, same area. It was really a mess.
yeah, now that I've heard a lot more of the stories that came out of it, it was a significant issue. And education of the public is the number one thing, but
Mhm.
I just completed my 6th community meeting and I had 30 people at that one, and that was the biggest meeting I had. So I'm only getting small snippets of the community at a time. And especially with Coos Bay, they have a much bigger population, a much harder time getting folks to show up to that kind of information sharing. So then they're having issues of, I think at one point they had one of the car lots evacuate all of their new vehicles uphill to a safe zone, which then blocked it off for people
Oh my,
getting up there. I mean, their cars were all safe, so
oh my
they
gosh.
shall remain nameless. But
Wow.
anyway, that's just one of the things that happened. But then you have people driving through town that didn't know what to do, where to go, especially if they're not from that area. So we're trying, every agency, not just us, every agency is trying to come up with new planning, new information, new strategies to be able to educate everyone as to if you get that alarm and it's a short term, if you have a short time to react, which way to go, which way to turn, and where you need to go to be in a safe area.
We actually are going to be discussing this on one of the agenda items today, citizen guidelines, a packet to go out to all the citizenry with information on all of that,
Mhm.
hopefully, but we'll talk about it as part of the agenda.
Yep, gotcha. Okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions you guys may have for me? Yes, sir.
One thing, I was talking to ODOT and on the road, they
Mhm.
want 100% control over that
Yep, I'm sure.
doing. And most of anything on the road, they'll do.
Mhm.
But you have to get their approval before you make it official
Mhm.
with anybody else. Because if you do it the other way, that's the catch-22.
Yeah, and that's my guess. That's why I wanted to ask them what their plans are for that kind of thing, and then seeing if I can help them help me make those plans become a reality, at least in our areas here, is my hope. So.
Jeff, about the container, the medical equipment, is that just basic triage equipment?
So what I have right now is actually cots. I have environmental. I've got several environmental, like air cleaning units, but cots, a little bit of triage equipment, a little bit of basic stuff like that, some basic dressings and things, some temporary or some disposable linen kits, disposable gowns, things like that to be able to operate a system. The big thing I'm missing is, of course, buildings to do it in. Or I have two. I'm told I have two. I only know of one. The Western Shelter, large like high-end tents, which take a good bit of effort to put back up. But I have one of those for sure, possibly two. So I have the ability to put up some sheltering stuff, but between what I would like to do is get my medical sheltering stuff scattered out so that each area's got an additional medical backup with kind of a heavier pile up here because Port Orford's medical footprint is a lot smaller than other areas because there's a hospital in Gold Beach and the hospital in Brookings.
The
And then
shelter you
Swan.
mentioned, is that the basic shelter, just the top covers that actually includes?
It's actually an enclosed tent, and I'm told I have two. However, I can't get all the way into the trailer to make sure I have two.
Okay,
So,
cool. There you go.
and I've been told I've had lots of other stuff that I've since been told doesn't belong to me. So that's one of the things we're having, issues are having, just sorting out exactly who owns, who has control or operational control over what, and then getting that stuff sorted out so I remain in control of that stuff. So, and then
We're going through the same thing.
that's, I'm not
Who has
surprised.
control, yeah.
So anyway, that's my plan, is to try to get more medical sheltering stuff up here in the next couple weeks.
How big is that tent?
Jim, could you speak into the microphone, please? Thank you.
Picture I saw was probably about 30 to 40 feet long and probably 12 to 15 wide. It's one of the Western Shelter, and I don't know the model. I could point out a picture of it, but I couldn't tell you the model off the top of my head. But it's completely enclosed, floor, everything else like that. Freestanding. It's supposed to be able to withstand fairly strong winds and things like that to be able to remain standing. So
Okay, so it's not a very big structure.
no, it's not a big structure. So.
Any more questions for Jeff? Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thanks a ton.
Appreciate
Yep.
that.
We'll see you next month. If you guys need anything, give me a call. So.
Okay, item B, EPC and SOP, standard operating procedure document that we want to put together. This would be much less of a document than an overall plan would be. Hopefully, we can use the county when they finish theirs as a model for ours. But I'm thinking this should be something that most all city staff and volunteers should be able to read through it and get the gist of where we want to be and where things are and who's in charge. I think that's critical to know that, where to go, who are the resources, which brings us back to the survey, which we left off November, December, that we were going to wait until January to actually conduct the survey. Well, we're in January now, and I think that's, again, something that would be helpful and definitely something we need to incorporate into the plan. Knowing what businesses are going to be cooperating and what they can put toward recovery for any kind of disaster, whether that's a flood or earthquake. And the churches and any of those organizations, what can they do to support recovery? So we need to, I think we completed the survey and we even had a letter that we put together to help people know what to ask for in the survey. So we need to move forward with that, I think. And I know that can be an uncomfortable thing for a lot of people to do. But I'm thinking if we can find volunteers who might be okay with going to, and we'll need to get a list of the places prioritized that we need to address and who in those places we need to hear from.
Maybe that's something I could do, a Facebook thing.
That would be good. And if any of you yourselves are willing to take a survey around, I think the list is important to have first so we can divide that out and we're not duplicating efforts going to the same places. So if we can devise a list, maybe you and I, Gary, can look at that. And then we'd have something to work from and be able to offer. I can't imagine it's going to be too lengthy,
It
given
depends on who you want to,
who we want to ask. Yeah. Yeah.
and it could be just whatever contacts we have or the ones that we
Hmm.
get information from. And the other might be a lot slower.
Yeah.
I know Terry Grimes and I could go to him. Mari knows Joe Marsh and Denise
Yeah.
Williams.
All right.
What is this in reference to? I'm sorry.
The survey, we pretty much
Right.
finished it prior to the holidays. Now we need to find out the information and then incorporate that in the SOP,
Mhm.
which is that's the agenda item we're on now. So I would say by next meeting, we should have a list of not only who we want to approach, but people who are willing to go and speak with those representatives of the organizations or RAISE or churches. We're going to need, and like I say, even if you can find friends or family who might be willing to do that between now and then,
Willing to do what?
do a survey.
Oh, do
We're going to have a list, I'm sorry,
Uh-huh.
we're going to have a list of those people who we want to, or places or organizations that we want to survey. And you talked about
Yeah.
Joe Marsh at one time.
Yeah.
But a list, and then we divide the list out.
Just shoot it by her and get any ideas.
Right, right.
Mhm.
I unfortunately didn't had too many different directions. I didn't bring that information with me this time. I'm sorry. I can get it to you later though,
Okay.
before the next meeting.
And I guess Jeff left, but you'll be happy to know he's got some tsunami signs for us.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Great.
Jim ordered about 10.
Mm-hmm. Marvelous. Yeah, there's signposts I think we can use on some of them, but as I said, on 12th Street where you have the stop signs, you can't put them on a stop sign post.
We can, well, we got permission.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay, well, that's special.
I asked John Isidore at a meeting.
Yeah,
Mhm.
great.
Mhm.
I think we can just put any old signs up, but the tsunami ones are significant enough.
Right. And I think that that's as I said, it's counterintuitive when you're coming out of the 12th Street and the Hamlet to think of going that way
Mhm.
instead of that way.
And he also talked about painted arrows on the road.
Yeah, Jim researched that. It's pretty expensive.
He was talking about it. I don't know if he had anything in mind as far as how to do it and where to get the money for it, but
Yeah.
it was something he brought up.
That was mostly discussion of the highway arrows.
Yeah.
Or it wasn't arrows per se, it was what is the edge of this tsunami zone?
Oh, the
Mm,
blue,
mhm.
the triple blue lines, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's seen those in Coos Bay, you know, they're,
Where would they be, on the main street
oh,
entryway?
if, let's see. I know there's one when you go up, I can't think of it, it used to be where Connects was. And you're going, like, you're gonna go up to the hospital off of 101
Mhm.
at that light. There's a series of, blue lines
That's up
there.
above
and
Dave's
then-
Pizza up there, across the road there. I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, he actually talked about high school students helping with that.
huh,
So I don't know, it's worth investigating.
Probably if we did a mask of whatever it was and that went down, a cardboard or whatever, sprayed
Yeah,
open spots.
seems like if they're just straight lines, that's manageable for a high school student.
By hand, it wouldn't, I
Hmm.
don't think it would fly.
On city streets, we can do it. On the highway?
Yeah.
No.
We'll see what he comes up with.
I've researched it already.
So let's get together, Gary, and get that list. I think we started a list at one point.
Pretty good list.
Yeah, and then we'll bring it in for the February meeting and see how we can divvy that up and how we can get the surveys done, because that really needs to be incorporated into the SOP. We need to know who we can draw help from and what type of help.
considering the length of time you have to think of, I mean, not so much for fire, but for earthquake and tsunami things, you know, you have to think in geologic time. And we have very short lifespans compared to rocks. One of the things that's really important is updating. And I will give you an example. When I was on the fire department, they wanted contact information for the people at the hatchery, the workers at the hatchery. So I gave all that to them. They put it on the board there in case they ever needed to draw water there. Like 10 years after none of those people were there, it was still on that board.
Mhm.
Meaningless.
I believe it. I believe it. And
Would call.
Yeah. Meaningless phone numbers, you know? So you have to have something in place for updating these things regularly, because there's a lot of changeover.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And those are important numbers to have too. So I don't know if we can make it an annual thing that we do just to
I
check.
guess it's the same person, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, same number, same person.
If you're going like church and other groups, they have their own election time. And if you record that date so that you contact them after their elections for positions, then you'll have more of a date that you can at least keep on it.
What type of elections would the churches be having?
Board members.
Oh, I see. So you're thinking board members. I was thinking more of the pastors, a deacon, those type people.
They're usually on the board.
Yeah, well, could be. Yeah, I think that would be important to determine in all the individual churches, who's in charge, and should it be someone on the board, or should it be the priest? Who would be the contact person? And that we could only do by starting that process. I know I tried to do that a couple years back for the churches. I forget what I was doing, trying to get some information. Oh, I know what I was trying to do, Mari. I was trying to get the churches to advertise or talk about during the volunteers for the firehouse. And I had the hardest time finding who was in charge, finding a number. And those are churches who are supposed to be, I would think, available and ready to help.
Show up on Sunday morning.
I can only do that so many Sundays.
That's what they want.
That's what they want, yes. So it's not going to be easy. Thank you, Ann.
And
Good night.
See ya.
Yeah, so even that just might not, because I think the Catholic Church had someone I was supposed to call in Bandon, because at that time, we didn't have our own priest here.
Right.
And so, yeah,
And a lot of times the person who like takes care of the church is not
yeah,
the pastor,
The
Yeah.
custodian.
yeah.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that, the community church over here, the deacon is Tim Sparks. And I'm pretty sure that he probably does all the upkeep, questions, at least make sure
Yeah.
that they're going in the right
So we're
direction.
going to have to dig.
They have buildings and grounds managers for larger churches, these probably don't, but
Yeah, yeah, definitely we're going to have to dig to find the right person to even ask. And then who knows who they'll recommend to
I
actually.
talked to Peter Fritsch and of the Episcopal Church
Mhm.
and met with him and gave him a survey. It was right after we had gotten together, and I followed up on it, but I haven't. He wasn't like, I don't know that he knew what to do with it.
Yeah,
And I can talk to Phyllis Johns about the Lutheran Church because she's very active with a lot of the projects there. So I can talk to Zion and Community. I know the two people there.
well, did you want to just take a survey form and have them fill it
I
out?
could. Yeah, I have one,
Okay,
pretty sure.
because that's really what we're looking to do.
I'm pretty sure I got one. Yes, I do. If it hasn't changed.
Oh, yeah, that'd help. I'd be real curious how successful that will be.
Yeah, get feedback anyway.
Okay, any questions or comments on that?
That's it. Okay.
Well, I think for the SOPs,
Thank you.
we're probably going to have a smaller group that gets together and then presents it to the commission here.
Yeah, we were working with Dick on that, and
Port Orford, I'm looking
I
at.
don't know that,
I meant the agenda for this meeting.
have you talked to him lately?
That is this meeting.
Have you talked to Dick lately?
Monday.
No, this
Okay.
is the city of Port Orford.
And he wasn't able to attend today, but he's still interested in working with us on that, do you think?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, we'll check it out then.
Commission, Dragonfly, yeah, this is.
Okay, development of citizen guidelines for this is something that stemmed out of this last tsunami event, the warning that came out, and people were so frustrated they didn't know where to go or what to do, and it's the blame game. Every disaster, it's just down in LA after the fires, no matter what, it's the blame game that people are angry and there are things that don't work, but a lot of it has to do with the lack of information that they haven't received. So that's what we're about, is information and letting people know what they can or can't do. If we could put together a packet, and I'm envisioning one of the plastic bags that they have when you canvass for candidates and hang on doorknobs, that there's a number of bits and pieces of information that we could put in that and even make up some of the information that's lacking and start putting them on doorknobs. We don't necessarily have to talk to people, but at least we can say that residents received information on the routes, received information on who to call and what to do, information on go bags. So for me, that's one way we can do to approach more people. Not everybody's on Facebook. Not everybody is even getting the warnings that that we got over.
So what happened to our deal of the flyers we're gonna put in the water bills every month? That was gonna have just one concept in it each time. And we had 6 different concepts and they were gonna rotate. The first one is knowing the difference between, I can't remember them offhand, but I remember the first one was basic steps of knowing the distance between a remote tsunami and a distant tsunami. and what you're supposed to do and know where to go. And then we had,
bag.
one was the go bag, one was
Right.
practice your route, one was,
That's another way to do it.
and that way everybody who lives in the city would be getting this with their water bill.
Maybe. We're still leaving out, I think, a number of people because so many of our houses are,
Everybody gets a water bill.
it can, but so many of them are owned by people out of town, for one, and also they may be rentals that the renters don't receive those bills, but the owners do. So I think
Yeah,
we'll also have
that.
to think about how do we work around that?
I
But-
talked to Melissa today and about a couple different things. I was getting a little frustrated and then at the end of my email to her, I was thinking, here we are, the smallest city in Port Orford, and we're the only ones that have a emergency commission. And Jeff told us that Gold Beach doesn't and Brookings doesn't.
Wow, even after the tsunami thing, they didn't put a
They
Well-
don't have a group that's,
thinking about it.
yeah.
Hmm.
The city is just struggling with it themselves in their spare time.
Yeah, or just don't think
Right.
about it. And I got thinking that we're really a small community and we ought to like pare down our view of what we can do.
Mhm.
And she pointed out, I had, was working on the truck radios. And if we can get all of our staff, police and fire to be able to communicate with each other and be able to communicate with Melissa and eventually with Ann possibly, and we get KUPO have an emergency mode, and Ken's working on the studio up there, so everybody could have a $20 emergency radio and be feeling like they are part of the, something's going on. They would know to turn the radio on at a certain time each day, or to work on that. And I'll be on the board of KUPO when Ken gets the
Mhm.
license transferred.
So where's the money for the radios coming from?
The KUPO.
No, for the radios that everybody's gonna have.
Oh, we had a grant a while
okay.
back, and
Uh-huh.
10 radios were purchased,
Mhm.
Kenwoods,
Uh-huh.
and 4 were used in police cars,
Mhm.
but there's still 6 left. And so I have an appointment with Jeremy on Tuesday, and one of the public works trucks will go and Jeremy thought he could do it in 2 to 3 hours. We'll see, and then we'll see what it costs. I'll go ahead and buy the first one,
Mhm.
and then we'll just take it a truck at a time.
Mhm.
But if all of the staff can talk to each other and all those vehicles can be in parts of the community, and KUPO was broadcasting so that people knew kind of any information that we get could go out, so that people started feeling less fearful. It's going to be a scary situation, whatever it is, if we get to that point.
Yeah, part of the problem with that last tsunami thing is that, it was such a broad thing and it was not very granular. And I know that the Shake Alert people are kind of working on that, went, oh yeah, that was kind of a little overreaction. But that might be where the small radio broadcast could come in better than,
Or to have multiple,
than your phone
through
that's,
the Everbridge.
has 400 miles of people evacuating for no earthly purpose, although it was a great drill. It was a really good drill.
It was.
And if a few
Well,
people-
you gotta fail. You gotta do a drill
few
to see
people
where
have
you're gonna
low
fail.
bags because of
I gotta tell you that
Yeah.
the CEO of the of CCHC, she came from tornado country, and she was kind of like, okay, so tell me about these tsunamis, because she gets there and they go to their, even though they're pretty darn high up in Bandon, wave gets up to Ray's, shopping center in Bandon, might as well just sign off, But at any rate, they go out to the, whatever that is, the VFW hall, I think it is, out there on 42. And she's looking around and she goes, did anyone from our medical clinic bring an AED, the oxygen, anything? We're the medical community. So, I mean, you have to use these things to learn. And she was coming, from South Dakota just a few months ago. She was already going, oh, here's what we need to do different. But I was also thinking of another thing. Right now with the fire board, where I'm getting Dave to promote brush cutting this time of year. This is the time of year to get your defensive space in place. And I just kind of thought it might be like these little packages you're saying you can hang on the door, but another thing might be to have representatives, who know something about this, about defensive space, going door to door in places like the Hamlet, where if you get a fire going through there, you will have building to building.
Leaping from one to the next.
Yeah, which is, what happened in California. It wasn't, well, it was brush, but it was brush next to the houses, and, neighbors have to work together, because if your neighbor isn't taking care of the stuff, it's not going to help you,
Right.
And so to maybe approach these things as a neighborhood thing. And have an actual person go in there and go, well, this looks, a positive person. I could help out with that. And say, you did really good here, but this firewood stacked against the house, bad idea.
Yeah.
And maybe you could do something over here, and just kind of, because I think people can't think in terms of their individual house. We've done, when I was on the fire department, I would go to people's houses. We would have fire drills going to people's houses. I would set it up with them beforehand, obviously. And while we were there, we would talk to them about, you need to cut these trees down so we can get your limbs off so we can get a truck in here. This bush next to your house is bad news. But I think people kind of need, it's a small town and we're a small group, but a more individual approach and do it block by block.
Again, it would be great if we could put together a group of volunteers who we could train, and they are willing to go out and help do that very thing.
Yeah.
It'd be great if the fire department.
Yeah, they have plenty of other stuff that they need to practice.
Yeah.
That's
And-
kind of the problem with the community, is that the doers are doing.
Yeah, all they
And-
can right now. But as,
Trying to get
I
it
look
to-
at that survey and I think, well, if we put a sheet together and instead of just sending it to people, go there in person. So, here, I'd like to talk to you about, and then, as soon as they figure out you're not a Jehovah's Witness.
Exactly.
And you're not going to be there every month, they might be a little more willing to talk to you.
Well, they could wear a fire department vest
Yeah,
and have something official. Well, we'll be talking about badges in a little bit
Yeah.
here too, but if we could identify ourselves, or volunteers could identify themselves as a little more legit than just someone coming up looking like they're a salesperson of some sort.
and Jeff Hughes has some grants for money for brush removal. And Erin Minster she had a grant, but it got used up. I just talked to her last week. And she said to, talk to Jeff about it, and I am going to give him a call. But to take, to say, here's an opportunity for you to do that. And tell them when Free Brush Week is, and, figure out who can haul brush for them.
Yeah.
It's a big issue for people, although they do pick it up. CRT will pick it up but it has to be in the right
We could somehow coordinate that. We have a free yard waste twice a year.
Right, I just called them about that. They haven't established a date yet.
Yeah, but if we could coordinate with that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
that's,
We did
I
last
mean,
year.
that's what we've
That's-
been doing,
Mhm.
so, but just going on a personal basis to people. So if you did a package like that, that might be a thing, is to just, instead of just hanging it on the door where it's garbage, like what this,
Mm.
on the trash.
Well, that might be all we can do if no one's home. But you're right. If, first of all, we have volunteers who feel comfortable talking to other people, which is hard to find, at least my feeling is if they can drop off the information, that's something. Ideal would be to talk to someone, but
Yeah,
Door hangers typically have a less than 1% read rate.
really?
Exactly right, because they get thrown on a desk in door, from the door, and then someone comes in and throws them in the trash can. That's what I've seen
Mm.
on door
Mm.
hangers.
Pretty
We did
low.
door hangers down in Alameda County in California, and that's what happened to most of them.
Hmm.
They ended up in landfill.
well,
Think about how much people read now
Human
compared to 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm
You
saying.
end
a-
up reading
a
so
personal
much,
approach,
and then here's
you
a
know,
new
and it would
thing.
take a long time, but we could target the areas. I mean, the areas that, really need brush control and
Mhm.
really need, Hamlet, people in the Hamlet need to be talked to personally
mhm.
about their escape route,
Yeah,
because that is a sitting duck right
that's
there.
right. A lot of people in there.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest, Mari? How do we get people to go in and do that? And how do we train people to go in and know how to do that?
Well, I think we need to keep it simple.
It needs to be broken down into bits like we were thinking, I think.
Mhm.
Because I feel that we've got a bulletin board at Ray's now that we can put something in. You got the newspaper, you got Facebook, you got the water bill. If we do focus a particular thing for a period of time,
Mhm.
make sure that the paper got it and the water
Mhm.
bill went out and, a flyer got on at the post office and at the Ray's and
Do we have any kind of flyer on clearing brush? Do we have anything that
No.
could be in a water bill?
But, I'm sure that there's stuff online with Coosa. I've done talks for Garden Club and stuff. And the Forest Service has all kinds of paper on that. There's
Okay.
probably still some sitting over in the fire hall that I left there. But you can, go to Gold Beach and
Mhm.
talk to them about it, call ahead, and they usually have, stuff. But once again, it's, you can hand them something, but I really think that it has to go beyond that, where somebody is coming up and talking to them and
Yeah.
saying, these bushes next to your house, not move the brush back, don't have brush 5 feet, but, point to their stuff and go, I'm not telling you have to do this. I'm just telling you your house won't burn as likely if you get rid of this, and, to each person. It's sort of like when the fire crews came in to clear on the Anvil fire to people's houses, and they would pull up and, and say, we think we should clear this. I think we should do that. I mean, some people just need to be told, you really need to clean your gutters in July. It's not raining, but you got to do it, because that's what'll start your house on
Yeah.
fire.
Yeah.
And you got a nice metal roof with thin needles that deep on it. They need to have stuff personalized to them, and it has to be done gently.
but it's
Because-
going to be really difficult finding the people to do that.
To do that.
No, and I that's what I'm thinking. Just think of 1 or 2 people. Don't think of yourself as, we don't have enough population to have a team. If we have 2 people,
Yeah, I can think of 2 over at the fire hall now that might do that.
Yeah.
And
and
I could do it
and you're
as
not
well.
going to get it. You're not going to get a whole lot done.
Mhm.
You're only going to get a little bit, but a little bit is better than none.
Yeah.
On fire clearing, to my mind,
Mhm.
I mean, Erin Minster, her grant was for invasive species that were also fire hazards.
Mhm.
And, she just went around town looking for pampas grass and gorse and stuff like that, and you got to walk delicately because some people really think that that's the greatest plant in the world by their house, and
That's sentimental value.
Yeah.
Well, and then the other issue, and we've talked about this in the past, and this is why we talked about some type of identification for people who go out to do that, because anyone could approach and start in that kind of a conversation, but could slide into some other kind of,
that's what I'm saying, have some paperwork from,
Yeah.
the fire department, put out there a thing, you put out something on the city page saying,
yeah.
this area will have people coming around to talk to you about your,
Mhm.
reducing your fire danger. And while you're there, so you know how to get out in a tsunami,
Mhm.
and then you could reference it. If they say, "Well, I don't know who you are," well,
Mhm.
this is written
I
up.
can see we could take that flyer that I did for the fire department on numbers at houses,
Uh-huh.
and we could slide into that conversation as well, because
Yeah.
that's as important to be able to find people at an address that you visually can see. Yeah, that's a good idea, Marian.
So think about, fairly simple. I mean, I like that flyer because it didn't have a lot of stuff on it.
Mhm.
It didn't have small writing.
Mhm.
Had nice pictures. People aren't going to spend more than about, what do you think,
Yeah.
3 to 5 seconds looking at
That's
something.
about it.
Yeah.
And so, you could have something like that. And then,
There's some brochures in the fire hall upstairs in the loft area. I'll go through those and see what's still available.
yeah. And if not, I can go down to Gold Beach sometime and, things are starting to calm down for me a little bit.
Yeah, good, good.
But I mean, I would be willing to be a person that walked around for that. And
Alright.
I mean, I know Dave was always, when somebody blow up at the fire department, you go, Murray, go over there, talk to him, pet him for a while, and don't seem to want to scream at a woman quite as much.
That's true. And I'd be happy to work with you on that as well. Jim?
Good idea to have individual ID with pictures of the person.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have that, otherwise it's worthless. Also having a sheet of paper that again identifies that individual so that after they've left, they have something
Mm-hmm.
that says who stopped by.
Yeah, I agree. Well, maybe between now and the next meeting,
Yeah,
we
I
could
mean,
put together some stuff.
I know half the people in the hamlet, so
Yeah.
it kind of helps if you're been around for a while and they, oh
Yeah.
yeah, you.
And it also helps to bring a newbie with you so that newbie becomes familiar with the community and with the people in the community. I think there's a couple of those that I might be able to snag to come with us.
All right.
Sure. Jim, did you have anything more you wanted to say on that?
No, not yet.
Yeah, I like the badge with the pictures, but I don't know how realistic we can slide into our next old business commission. This is commissioner identification pins, but I think you're also talking about pins for volunteers who go door to door.
Either or.
Yeah, so Gary brought in his pin that he got. How much were these each?
$8.50
$8.50.
on Amazon.
Yeah, you've got one there to show, and there's this one
Yeah.
on Amazon that.
Oh, this chair, I can't hardly get out of it.
$8.50.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if we want to, if you would do it for individuals who want to have a badge, or if you would prefer that they get their own.
You're saying I should buy everybody's badges?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I'm not sure that I'm interested in.
yeah, you might only need it for the people who are going to be doing a house-to-house thing. I don't think everybody has to have it.
And it's possible that their name doesn't have to be on it if it just had emergency commission
Right.
volunteer or.
That might be a good
they could be
idea.
used for,
What would be cheaper would be to have a lanyard and just have, no, I'm forgetting. What's the plastic laminate?
I don't know. Plastic laminate.
Have them laminated.
Mm,
That way you can have the picture, you can have
mhm.
all the information, and you're probably talking $1 each,
Mhm.
maybe $2 with a lanyard.
Who does that? Probably someone in Bandon
Um,
who would be able to do that.
Everything's made out of plastic.
I'm not sure.
Mm.
I haven't had to chase that one.
The city does laminate on, I know we have a map that, at Planning Commission that the city has laminated. I think they did it. I think Joseph did it. I could check to see, because if we could get a number of pictures and names all together and then just he laminates them and we could cut them to size.
I think the edge needs to be,
Sealed.
laminated. That's where it connects.
Mhm. Yeah, I'll talk to Joseph. Otherwise, I'll find out where it's done and how much it might cost.
There's the FedEx place, they probably do it.
Oh, yeah,
And
in Bandon.
I forget what their name is.
Okay. But that would just say Emergency Preparedness Commission volunteer. And it would have a picture. Is that the idea?
Well, if it has their picture, it might as well have their name. But if it,
They should have their name with the picture.
Yes.
I just think that adds an extra level of complexity that could keep it from happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's adds
Then
security.
we just don't do it, is what ends up happening.
Huh?
If it's too complicated, it just won't happen.
Yeah.
That's something that it'll probably take an hour to do a sheet.
Well, the other thing is the liability for the city. How would the city feel, the counselors,
Oh, I saw.
on that? We're sending people out as volunteers without any kind of,
Yeah.
You have to run it through the city.
yeah, I would think so.
Again, volunteers might have some concerns about liabilities and everything too.
Yep.
Yes,
That's
yeah,
Dog
another
comes
issue.
out and bites
Dog
you.
came out
Yeah.
and bit 'em.
Yep.
that's right.
Or they bit the dog.
But that's,
Or ate the dog. Yeah, that's,
In that case, Gary, what do you think on this idea? Because that kind of puts it in a different perspective. If
Yeah.
the council is going to be concerned about their liability.
Yeah. That does an issue.
I mean, it's a good idea. It makes sense. It would make people more comfortable talking to them as a volunteer, but
Yeah, and you get one person who gets real angry because they think you're going to make them do it. People hear what they want to hear.
Yeah.
You say stuff. If
Yeah,
you say, this tree
absolutely.
is hanging over, and they go, you told me I have to cut it. No, you told me I have. And you go, no, I didn't say that. And you're not going to convince them.
yeah.
So it's real easy to get somebody angry, and then they go to the city. And yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of.
I think going back to Melissa and my conversation, we need to pick the things that are maybe
Doable.
really going to happen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
and it's going to be enough of a project with the surveys for the businesses and
Right.
Mhm.
So I think we just go back to the flyers in the water bill, and if you send one and you only have 6 of them and you get 2 of the same ones every year, it might penetrate.
Mhm.
But they were very time consuming to make. Clark did a mock-up of the first one, and he said it took him several hours.
3 hours.
And this is for the brush clearing.
No,
This
that
was
was for
a
tsunami.
tsunami, and he was
Oh.
cut and pasting, and it
Uh-huh.
was just the initial one of distant versus remote,
Mhm.
and
And it
getting
pretty
under a
much
desk,
needed to be,
just basic stuff.
Colored. to
If-
be-
If we found a good brochure on brush clearing and copied that on back and front on a page and include that in the bill. Would that work?
Well, yeah, I'm sure it would, you know, I don't know how Forest Service would feel about you copying their stuff. I'm sure that
You'd
they,
have to have permission. If
Yeah.
you're copying anything.
I mean, they'll give you a big stack of them and you can put them in there, but I don't know if that's, it might, you have to look at them and see if it's any.
If it's too thick, that was Joseph's concern with the last one, is if it would.
Yeah, and I was
thick.
thinking of something like that big that would just slip in there and would have really minimal stuff on it.
Yeah,
Just because, I mean, I found in the last one, people just saying really crazy stuff, and then a week later they had, and these weren't like wackos, they were just people who didn't understand. And then a week later they had time to look at stuff and they'd go, oh yeah, remote versus a distant, and so it was like, it was the first time they heard it, even though it's all on the website,
The paper here. How much does it cost to, I'm not sure how big is the paper, but
Our newspaper?
yeah,
Oh, they don't have any writers, so they're looking for people to write stuff.
but
That,
how do they print it out? How big a sheet?
It's like a newspaper size.
yeah, I don't know
Okay.
the dimensions, but it's a regular newspaper.
It's
Yeah.
only like 3 pages or something.
Whether we could put in like a corner eighth sheet ad.
in the newspaper.
He's looking for articles, and if we made an article out of something, that,
If it's an ad, we'd have to pay for it. But
Yeah,
if
he
it's an
writes that.
article,
There's that guy who writes for, he writes the prepper column, I think, for the Western World.
oh, in the paper? I
Yeah,
think he passed away years ago.
yeah, yeah, no, I know.
And they
But
just
there's
keep-
still
they
something
keep
that
running.
comes out. I can't remember. It's like, because I mean, even the world is basically gone away, but he had a thing in there about, and it would be, I don't know, usually be about 4 or 5 columns, a couple inches. So maybe
And it was probably a
10
little
inch.
more than what a lot of people just, even being on the emergency.
Well, he was
I
kind
did-
of an amusing writer about stuff, so it was compelling to read. I mean, if you're a person that reads, if you're getting a paper that small anyway, you're probably reading the whole thing.
But I don't know that I read one through.
Really, huh? And then, how many people get a paper anymore?
I get one and I see that he's,
Hmm.
that's in there, but
Hmm.
I read certain things and
Right.
I've got so much I read
Right.
in a day that,
And most, you're just not seeing very many people. No, not very many people take the paper, and
well, I wonder what the circulation is.
That's another question.
Mhm.
But we have the website, Facebook page. This would be another large group, 100 people, maybe more,
Mhm.
that we would be contacting. That might
Yeah.
not
I think
be
there's
paying
900
attention to
people
the
on the
website,
Facebook,
Facebook page.
On which page?
the
Port
Port
Orford
Orford
News.
Emergency
Oh,
Response.
on that page, yes. And, well, I was thinking networks, because
Networks.
everybody, how many on networks?
Well, they're not all in Port Orford, but there's
Yeah.
4,500 people or something.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
Hmm.
But if it's on there, if 4,500 people see it, that's good too. But that's another way to do it.
It's reaching more people than going out and knocking on a door.
Can be. But I'm amazed at how many people are not on Facebook. A lot of people are
And there's
not
just
on
some
Facebook.
people we're not going to hit. And,
Yes.
and that was what I keep coming back to Melissa's in my conversation. For a long time, I couldn't get it out of my head that we needed to reach every single person. And I think what got me was during the last alert, afterwards, people were going, well, what about so-and-so? And bedridden or they're housebound and there's a point where we can't even provide for the healthy people that are going to be able to get up. We can't have a bunch of special needs people.
Mhm.
And where are we going to draw our line of what we can actually do?
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of what we really need to get serious about. Because you look back at all of the minutes and all the things we've talked about and how many things got carried through, it's
Right.
Not much.
not much.
Yeah.
But we are getting a radio installed in a truck, and we are going to eventually have KUPO, and so there are these little flows. And Ann was talking about, if we maybe the city could help with getting radios in the trucks. But we need to identify what tools can we give the community
Mhm.
when an emergency happens that are going to be the biggest bang for our buck, because our buck is really tiny.
Yeah, and again, the citizen guidelines just struck me as we need a one-page citizen guidelines that tell people what to do in an emergency, whether it's a tsunami or whether it's a fire, that this is kind of the process. These are the things you need to have and to do. And if we could get that one sheet out, even in the bill, in the water bill.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying you could make it a very small insert
It was
instead
a
of thinking of
third
it as a
page.
whole sheet.
Mhm.
Think of it as a third of a sheet that slides in there,
Mhm.
and it's just has one part of what you need to do. And
Something.
then
It's gotta
the
be
next,
clever,
and
or
then
it
the
won't-
next month it would be a different part, and there would be 6 of them, and every year you would get
Yeah.
2 of the same thing, and it might just penetrate.
Yeah, but I have to say, hearing Joseph talk about the last flyer that we did send out for the fire department, I'll have to see what he says about having a third of a page, if that's going to be more work for him.
Uh-huh.
It might be because of
Well, if there's a
how they have to
volunteer that
position.
ends up printing them and cutting them, then
It would be that, but
hand
also
them to them.
folding them in there.
Well, how big
No,
is
we're
it?
talking about cutting, having a third,
Right, I know that.
3 out of a sheet.
But when he puts them in the envelope, is it a machine or do they
Oh,
do
it's
it by hand? It's all by hand. So then what additional labor would it be for a third of a page versus a full page? That's all.
And that's
I
where I
thought.
feel like we need to work on volunteers to do things like that.
How big is
come
your
in.
water bill envelope? Is it a standard or is it a shorty? The water bill envelope.
It's a long one.
I think we finally went to a envelope where it used to be just a card.
Yeah, it's definitely an envelope.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Murray, you and I, let's see if we can't put something together
Mhm.
for distributing and going into maybe sectioning up that area of the city, or the whole city for that matter, sectioning it up to address one section at a time and cover that territory and then move on to the next one.
Yeah. I just see Hamlet as one of the most dangerous areas as far as
Yeah,
a number of different things.
yeah.
I mean, they do have the lake on the north side of them there, which will provide some protection if you had a fire. 81, we did have a fire take off up there north of Airport Road, and it made it to Sixes River. Unfortunately, they did get somebody on the other side, so it didn't jump the river.
Mhm.
And but it, moved right along.
Yeah, sure does. We've seen that.
We're talking about the water bill insert. Realize how many people are on the water system?
700,
Bill.
740 or something around there.
Households.
Mhm.
So that wouldn't cover up into the Cedar Terraces area at all. And there's a lot of people up there. And more people. There's a lot of building going on up there now.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit.
Mhm.
What's next?
Okay. I think status of the survey for the disaster resources, we were just kind of talking about that.
Yeah,
And
get that done.
you're going to check into that with two,
Two of the churches and with Joe and with the library.
okay, and then we'll see how that worked for you
Mhm.
and take it from there next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any feeling for, I never was able to show you that property on Jefferson and 9th Street, Mari.
Oh, I've looked at it, yeah.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I don't know, how do you think that would be best to be handled?
As far as clearing it,
And leveling?
well, I'm not sure.
'Cause that could be something to ponder, if there's anybody we could get to volunteer to do that.
Joe has done a lot of volunteer work for the city before. The clearing, yeah, I don't know. I could bring it up and talk to him about it and say, because I'm sure he knows where it is.
Because that's a really perfect spot
Uh-huh.
for
Yeah.
a command center,
Hmm.
and that's the one that we went up to.
Hey,
Yeah.
Gary, it's a suggestion. You want to talk to Tim about that because his son does land clearing.
Oh,
and
right.
Maybe there'd be a connection there
Mhm.
that could work out.
Right. Or if there were a group of
Yeah.
Joe and Wayne.
But yeah, I mean, Wayne has a better excavator for that because he's got that little excavator that can get into little tight spots like that.
Chad's got a ton of equipment now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Track hoe is what you need, excavator.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't think he's got kind of a medium sized one now.
Because we need to rip the root, we need to take the trees out by the roots in
Yeah.
order to be able to level it.
Hmm.
How big are the trees?
And then Joe's got, 10-yard trucks and drivers and all that stuff.
Mari, when does the burn ban go into effect? Do you remember? I could check on it.
It might be
mean-
different each year.
Yeah, it
Depending on the
depends
weather.
on the range.
Yeah, because it would be good to try and encourage people
Yeah,
to,
I had Dave Duncan put that on the web, on their Facebook page.
yeah.
But,
Because if there's a cutoff date for that, it might encourage people to get it done before that time so they can get rid of whatever brush and.
well, this was right during the California fires. And I said, this is foremost in people's mind. And if you put that on there now, when everybody's going, oh my gosh, fire, oh, that could happen to me. And you put it on there and you say, get rid of your brush now. Now is the time. Not August and September, now.
Yeah.
And so, and I presume Dave did that. I don't look at any of that stuff, so I don't know. I'm one of those people that don't look at any of that stuff.
Mid-June.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty typical, yeah.
Yeah.
But if the rain stops in
It varies.
March,
Then it's earlier.
yeah.
If the rain goes longer, it's longer, so.
Well, and I would think it'd be best to encourage them to do it ASAP and
You
maybe
can't burn in the
say,
city, can you? You can't burn brush in the city, you can?
A 4x4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think you could at all, huh?
all right, any commissioner comments for the evening?
I had gone to the preppers meeting when it was here in town.
Oh.
That was a interesting experience.
It's a good name for it.
Why was it an interesting experience?
Just the people that were there, they were preppers.
It's a different bunch.
It's a different bunch,
Oh,
but they brought up security,
that's always.
personal security, which is really a big. Here you're one of the people that does get prepared, and you've got a month or two of stuff to live on, but all of a sudden the group come in and
That's always
take all your stuff.
that's kind of a apocalyptic viewpoint.
But that's kind of the unmentionable part of
Right,
preparation and everything.
right. But,
Because
you
when
know,
people get hungry, and here you
Exactly.
are eating, and they haven't eaten for 4 or 5 days.
So
Right.
you have other supplies,
Mhm.
that type of thing. So
Right.
it could be a problem.
Mhm.
No doubt.
yeah, but I've also seen, I remember we had one guy in the fire department who was like, we're gonna have to, if anything happens, we gotta be ready to guard the base, and I was like, okay. Um, and, Randy Foster, who's been around here for a long time, was like, we've had emergencies in this town. And as we've seen in so many places, people really help each other out, and we have the benefit of having available food sources here. We have a
Sheep and
farm in
cattle.
Langlois that grows vegetables. We have, and yeah, probably not enough to feed everybody here, but with coordination, and, we've talked about slaughtering animals. That's not for the uninitiated. It's not going to be every person for themselves. You're going to have plans and crews and all that kind of stuff. And it's going to have to be done on the fly, on the ground. If we end up in a situation where we're here for, 6 months with no help from anybody.
Mhm.
But, people watch too much TV. And they have this
Well,
idea of,
During the tsunami alert, one of the locals was there, and he said he had 9 cars parked out front of his house.
uh-huh,
Well, if there was no town to come back to, then those 9 cars would be
at that
in
house.
front of his house.
Yeah.
And he
And
was concerned about
you would have to, I know people who live up on Hensley Hill and Cedar Terrace, and, you would have to have, group organization, and it's going to have to be pretty granular. It's like, okay, you're here at my house. We only have this much space. Think about 9/11, when all the planes landed in that little town in Newfoundland. I think it was it Newfoundland or Nova Scotia? And all of a sudden, a town of like 1,200 people and they kept those people on the planes because they just put the planes on the ground as soon as they could. And they had 3,000 people on planes, and they had them on there for like 18 hours before they said, we have to get them off. And they just got the town together and said, who's got what?
Mhm.
There was no plan for that. And that's what it's kind of going to be. And it's going to be
It'd be
on
organic.
it's going to be on a local level, because who knows who's going to be there and alive,
Well, I was approached by someone worried about the fact that he's and his family up in the terraces. And he has animals that you can eat, chickens,
Mhm.
pigs. And his fear was that people would come in and help themselves to the food. And he was very nervous about that.
That's what I said. I think people watch too many movies where this is how things work, and it has to go for a pretty long time
Before that happens.
And during that time, you have people who are organizing things. San Francisco has had just some horrific events in there, and it's just a feature of, I think there's some people who just believe in the worst of human nature and some people who believe in the best. But from what I've seen of emergencies, it usually goes over toward the best. Because I got news for you. If we lose electricity, I'm cooking everything in my freezer and feeding people because it's not going to keep,
It will keep as long as you don't open the door. It's Schroeder's box.
Okay.
I mean, it's, a lot of it is, attitude.
And I think it's the length of time we're talking about.
Right.
Because as any emergency and your limitations are prolonged for
Mhm.
a length of time, I think people lose patience. And
Right.
so that's maybe what other people are worried about.
And they feel that they, you know, the only way they can be safe is to protect themselves. And I'm saying is the group protects itself. The 9 people who are parked in front of his house, he probably knew some of them. And, you know, if it was like, oh, the town is gone, we need to sit down and talk. How are we going to do this? What are we going to do? Who's going to sleep where? You know,
I think you'd be surprised how quick that breaks down. It really does. And that's not watching TV either.
yeah,
Civilization can break down really fast in extremity.
yeah. But we don't have that pressure of people here. We just don't have that many people.
I've met some in the hills, I'll tell you. We do have some.
Yeah, we have some,
We have some.
you know, but I don't see marauding gangs of, you know,
Teenagers.
I mean, it's like the people you met up there, they're not even going to get out of the national forest. They're going to be on their own up there, you know. It's like, good luck, guys. Have fun. But,
Okay, I don't think anyone's online there. I can't see from here, but I'm assuming no one is online. If they are, we're taking public comments at this time, if anyone is online. No one evidently. So next meeting is February 27th. Does that sound good to everybody?
end of the month.
All right. I think with that, I'll call this meeting closed at 14 minutes after 7:14.
Thank you, everybody.
Got to give Gary his thing back.
Are you checking in with Joseph to have him?
It happens.
Turn it off.
The other day, see, I got a right eye.
Things
left
had
eye.
to land at Bowden
What I'm
Field,
gonna do, I'm gonna have you carve a neat peg leg out of
Oh, dear.
great wood from around here. You know. Good
all
hard
the
wood,
airport
good
houses.
peg leg, cut the thing off,
Oh.
get a patch from
I was
eye and
in
get a
Houston
pair.
all the time.
Ooh,
Mhm.
that'd be
They were
great.
sending people to any airport just.
Need a good
to-
carved
I
leg
think
though.
we used that.
So,
Yes, in Colorado,
We might hire you
I
to
had
do
people
that.
sent to New York.
That'd be good on the 4th of July, wouldn't it? Walk.
You'd lead the parade.
My wife said, don't get a parrot that live longer than you're ever gonna
Oh, yeah, I know somebody who, I can't remember what the event was, but
Told
somewhere
Tim
all
that,
these
he said,
planes are grounded.
He said, "Arg."
Just
He
talking
says,
to
you're gonna
somebody,
get jump ahead of
"Oh,
me.
it's a good car. They're from San Francisco. He was going to Oregon and, you know, didn't know him from Adam and just went up there.
Okay, Harry.
The other thing is everybody around here is so well armed that I can't
Well,
imagine somebody.
see, there you go.
I know you ain't getting
didn't
on
wanna
Joe
say that.
Marsh's.
I didn't want to say
ranch.
that on mic, but yeah.
They got 2 wolfhounds this big, you know.
That'll slow you down for that.
They will, but they're real lovers,
Yep.
and they'll
That and,
knock you down just trying to get you to pet them.
or-
You know, I mean, that dog
Like
comes
to-
over and he's like, oh, and you're like, yeah, okay, Duffy, got it. We're good.
And
Homeowners Associated about.
I don't need to do the council chamber lot or
Those flyers.
Yeah,
Most of them turned up in landfill.
So how you been doing?
pretty good. We had a really, really busy summer. We were on our roof from
All
May
right.
through November.
thank you, Joseph.
Finally got the metal roof on, so we're all metalized now, and
No worries.
What type of information did it have?
It's general safety information.
figure out what to make, if they made any deck material that wasn't
Yeah.
And,
a lot of deck.
there's a lot.
And I know there's Trex, but I know that, yeah.
I've seen older Treks and I would use it.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot to be said for it. Here's this. Did you have that key?
Then also, how can you help? How can you help?
That'll make a box.
It's a weird deal.
That's right.
Emergency manager.
Jim's got Oh, you're gonna make a little plaque. So I haven't even looked at the,
As an outlier.
oh, okay.
Else.
All right, I will take
And-
this and, I'll
And
have
that's the inventory.
Ken and I tomorrow will go
I
up
ain't got
to,
Here?
Here.
How's
Here.
the Hamlet doing it?
up to Cedar
Yeah.
Terrace, see where we want to mount it.
I had a lot
And then we'll make a box and it will just be, I think I'm gonna try to put it between the man door and the first garage door because that's probably the staple part of the building. You know, I mean, yeah, you know, you want to be able to find it and make some kind of a hasp on it so that wouldn't like just pop open in a shake and I would lose this.
Mhm.
And then, you know, I'll just
And it's
you know,
always,
I'll-
well, that
I'll
happened
take
to
the
them.
Yeah.
price off.
Even in California.
Just,
Oh, yeah, you can just cut that.
yeah, and just, you know,
California.
So you see that.
well, and I'll just have it inside because there's
It was a
all,
big
you know, there's
nothing.
always that jerk.
When we had
So,
prior to that, it was a big
what's
nothing.
in there? And it's like,
Because-
here's what's in there. It's not that
It's pretty
interesting.
anticlimactic, yeah.
You're not
And
gonna
then,
be thrilled.
Jeff's got a key to it, and I have a key, and the city will have their keys.
And you couldn't get to the ocean.
You could, people in the ocean were dying out
And they were
there.
dying out there too.
Compare it.
That looks like-
I changed the
Yeah.
locks. It might not be the same.
Human nature thing.
That
That
looks pretty
what we
much
gotta
the
do is get
same.
people. can't-
You might try it, and, because I think I've got,
Yeah, that looks pretty much the same. And then, you know, Dave's already approved that we can put it in there.
Oh, good.
I mean,
You know,
we've been looking at this long
I just
enough
wanna
to realize.
make sure I've got the right thing to fasten it to. I don't, you know, because, you know, what always happens is you make it this big,
Where I live, people-
this big, you fasten it. And you go, oh. Back to the drawing board. Oh, the best one is, Billy Hoffman. She's so bummed out. So proud. She and Damien have used, cage or something and built some kind of a little animal cage. So proud of it. They couldn't get it through the door. Oh, no. Lived inside there like,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I've been there for years.
yeah, you gotta think about that.